Welcome back. It is the Vegas Take. It is Futrell and Shapiro today. My co-host Sharpie is out, although Mr. Futrell joins us every Tuesday, so we're very glad to have him in and joining us as usual. But, of course, the State of the Union address going on, and we're going to be talking about that. In hour number 2, we're also going to be having one of the, probably, I would say, most up-and-coming and successful young attorneys here in Las Vegas. Sandy Van from the Sandy Van Law Firm going to be joining us. Have a lot of law questions to ask her, whether it comes to politics or Colin Kaepernick or you name it. She's very knowledgeable, so we will get to that. And, of course, your phone calls at 257-5396. But before the break, we were talking, and we'll get to the some of the calls in a second here. Before we went to break, I was talking a little bit about, and I was generalizing that some of these big networks, all they care about is ratings. All they care about is money, because ratings equal money. Ron Futrell's been in the business of TV for a very long time. So, Ron, I wanted you to comment a little bit on that.
No, and I don't disagree with you the way a lot of TV stations go. Well, radio, electronic media, newspapers now. It's much more difficult as time goes on to dedicate resources to an investigative team that goes out there and does the hard shoe leather type of work. But I am proud. I'm happy at Channel 8 that we've got an I-team, an investigative team that goes out there and does stuff on a regular daily basis. George Knapp is one of the most respected reporters on the planet, really, with some of the stuff that he's done, investigative reporting, and many of the things that he's done relative to mob, relative to the supernatural, relative to a number of different things. And people on this station, KDWN, have heard him over the years on various, with Art Bell and various shows. And but I am proud of that, to work at a TV station that still is dedicated to that, when a lot of other media outlets, and I do not disagree with you, a lot of other media outlets have gone away from that, because it is it's expensive to dedicate resources to these sort of investigative stories and getting them right and doing it right, and that I'm happy about, and that I'm I'll say proud of.
And I wasn't really, and I agree with you. I wasn't necessarily talking about local news. I don't really watch a lot of local news, and the reason why I don't, it's not a shot against any of these networks like Channel 8 or anyone else. I just don't want to hear bad news every day. I want to be entertained. I'll put on Fox News, and at times I'll laugh at some of the stuff they do in their interviews, and then I'll put on CNN, and then the contrast, it's so different. As far as local news go, I like hearing the local sports stuff. And I'm not saying that just because you're here. I like hearing the local angles on whether it's the Knights or UNLV. Right. That 4 or 5 minutes I enjoy watching. I wish it was sometimes 3 minutes. I wish it was longer. But as far as local news, I don't want to hear about some drunk driver that killed 3 people. It depresses me. I don't want to hear about how the economy's struggling, or this place closed down, or this murder happened. It's horrible, man, and that's why I stay away from the local news. But anyway, point taken. I do think the local news stations, Channel 8 and some of the other stations here, do a good job with the hard-hitting news. They get it right, and I think that's important. Let's take a few phone calls. 257-5396, 702-257-5396. Let's start off with Keeve, who's been waiting patiently on hold. Keeve, thanks for calling in. How are you? Keeve, are you there? I think we've lost Keeve. I hate it when, it hurts me when these guys are on hold for like 15 minutes, and then when it's their time to shine, and I lose them. It sucks.
How is his name spelled?
Keev.
Oh, Keev. Yeah, okay.
It's Keev, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a little bit illiterate. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I believe I pronounced his name right. But anyway, if you want to
I was going to say he was a Russian spy. It was Kiev, Kiev, or something. That might be a Russian spy.
That's the kind of guy that Don Jr. wants to get into a room with and have a meeting.
Oh, yes, those Russians.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go to Fernando. And again, the number to call, 257-5396. Fernando, thanks for calling in. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, Ron. Hey, Brian.
Hey there.
What's up?
I know we talk about the national news a lot, but let's talk about our local news here in Vegas, North Las Vegas and Henderson, with all the crime, the shootings every day, the finding somebody dead every day. Las Vegas is a great place to live, no doubt, but we do have a lot of crime, and something has to be done about it. And I want to get your guys' opinions on this, because we love the sports, we love the entertainment, we love the gambling. However, there are more important things than that. Those three.
I agree, Fernando, and thank you for the call. Let us answer, and let me start, and then I'll let Ron respond to that too. I was a news reporter for 10 years or so, covering local news in this area. I hated it, and the reason why I hated that job. And when I was hired here at KDWN to do the same thing as a news reporter, I hated it because you're usually covering depressing things. You're right, whether it's a shooting or. I will say this though, the bottom line is, since we live in this 24/7 town, and Ron could attest to this, he's been here longer than me. A town of drinking and partying and gambling. It's a 24/7 lifestyle. I think it could be a lot worse than it is. Could it be better? Absolutely. There's a lot of crime, particularly in North Vegas. We've had some horrible things happen. Of course, the October 1 shooting was just beyond devastating. And we have a lot of car crashes in this town, too, and a lot of fatalities. But, again, I do believe that it could be worse than it is. Certainly not Chicago. What are your thoughts on that, Ron?
Well, I got here '84. We were 300,000 people when I got here, so it was. You could take Flamingo and it ended at Valley View. Think about that. If you're going Flamingo West, it would stop pretty much at Valley View. Now it picked up later in Spring Valley. They had some homes out there and had a little raceway, the Stardust Raceway out there. They were building Spanish Trail, so the city was just starting into its explosion that we saw up until 2008 when the recession hit Vegas harder than any other city in the country. We were first in, we were last out with the recession. Okay, we're a big city now, and with being a big city comes big city problems. And we're just, I hate to say naturally going to have them. What the answers are, the answers, you won't be able to solve these problems without going straight to the source. I'm saying the bottom. I'm saying I'm going to use that family and the 3 C's, family and communities, churches, and charities be able to help out in the community on a grassroots basis, education. Though that's the hard work that you have to do to be able to build freedom, safety, and build a community. And there's no other way around that. That's hard work. That's hard. And
it's also hard to protect people on the Strip, too. There's a lot of people on the Strip on any given night.
Yes, and what this city does to it has to do this. It protects it. One thing, okay, I'll give it this way. I'll describe it this way. I was in Hawaii one time where one of the great, a month before I got there to Hawaii, this had to be 87, 88, one of the great reporters here in Las Vegas history, Ned Day, and few will remember him, but he was an investigative reporter at Channel 8 and also with the Review-Journal, covered the mob. He died at Hanauma Bay at a beach there. And I just coincidentally was going there within a month, let's say a month later. And I talked to the guy, I went to Hanauma Bay. I wanted to see there. I knew Ned and knew of his work here in Las Vegas. And I talked to the guy who pulled him off the beach. And he talked about what happened with his death. And there were some questions here in town that it was mob related, rightly so. He ticked off some people in the mob. That was what he did. What that guy on the beach told me was something I've never forgotten. He says, here in Hawaii, we like to keep our deaths that happen in the tourist area quiet, but a lot of people come here and die because they overexert themselves, they drink too much, they party too much, they all of those things, and they might
things in moderation.
Might be a little bit overweight. Sure. He says Las Vegas and Hawaii are the 2 places on the planet where they keep tourist deaths as quiet as they possibly can because it hurts the industry. Yep. But a lot of people come here to Las Vegas. They are, let's say they're a little up in age, a little overweight. They drink too much, they party too much, boom, and they're going upstairs and they keel over.
Yeah,
and those sort of, now I know that doesn't address what the caller was talking about, Fernando, with the homicides and that sort of stuff, but it is but it is related, only in the sense
you could live a very unhealthy lifestyle in Vegas if you choose to, but it is a choice. There are also ways to live a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, Metro works for the safety of our community, but they also work for the safety of the Strip, and they also work to try to keep for the casino industry to try to keep those numbers down and try to keep it quiet when it happens.
No doubt. You know, this, as I mentioned, the State of the Union address going on right now, and this country is extremely divided. And when you're watching, I was watching a little bit of the speech on my screen here, and you see Ocasio-Cortez and a lot of the females, Democrats, they're all wearing the same clothing, the same white clothing, and then I see...
What's that mean? Socialism?
I don't know what it means. No, I don't think...
She's a socialist.
I don't think it means that, but I do see some of the things that Donald Trump says, and this is typical of any State of the Union address, where you see the majority of the Republicans standing up and clapping on certain things that he says, and then Democrats are just sitting down. I just think it's foolish. It's childish. I think this whole State of the Union thing is a joke. I think it's a waste of time. But anyway, that being said, the reason why I bring up how divided we are, I was getting into some debates on social media today. I know that's a shocker, me getting into a debate on social media, but today would have been the 24th birthday of Trayvon Martin. And it's a horrible story. I wish it never happened. And for those of you that don't remember or possibly were living under a rock, This guy, George Zimmerman, who said he was the neighborhood watch commander and he had the legal right to carry a gun. He calls 911. He sees an African-American kid who's really doing nothing wrong, just walking home with a bag of Skittles. He did have some marijuana on him, but I don't care about that. Who cares? And for whatever reason, this guy decides to call 911 for no reason. It's idiotic. He calls 911, Zimmerman does, and the 911 operator says, we got people on the way. I'm paraphrasing here, but basically said, we don't need you to follow him. Well, Zimmerman, being the moron that he is, but this is the key word here. It's not against the law. He got out of his car. He followed Zimmerman. He followed Trayvon Martin. Martin was scared. He was talking to his girlfriend on the phone. He was scared. He was a young kid. And unfortunately, it cost him his life because all the evidence points toward the fact that Trayvon Martin was the one who started the physical altercation. Now, this guy Zimmerman is and still is a complete moron. And if he went to jail for involuntary manslaughter, I wouldn't have had a problem with that. But the problem in this case is, and the majority of African Americans think that Zimmerman should have been charged with murder. The evidence pointed towards the fact that Trayvon Martin was beating this kid's head in on a cement walk there. And if somebody was doing that to me, and if I had a gun on me, I don't care who it was that was doing it, I would shoot you. Now, with that being said, I would not call 911 for no reason, and I certainly wouldn't follow somebody for no reason, and that's what Zimmerman did, and again, he's a moron. But I'm getting into these arguments with people that have opinions like I have, and they call me a racist. It's the same thing with Ferguson. It's the Ferguson argument, too. Hands up, don't shoot. Well, guess what, folks? That's not what happened, okay? You had a police officer in Ferguson who was doing his job, and even African Americans who were witnesses said that kid charged at the officer. But if you listen to anybody, who thinks that, anyone, I guess, who's a racist, there's no issue, there's no doubt in my mind. There are plenty of, I shouldn't say plenty, but there is a small amount of officers out there that perhaps are racist, that perhaps do stereotype people, and I wish in a perfect world that would stop. There have been some unlawful officer-involved shootings. It does happen, although it's rare, and I would say many of the officer-involved shootings out there are legal, and the reason why these officers have to shoot because you got a bunch of idiots that aren't listening to commands. They're not doing what the officers tell you to do. But in this Zimmerman case, I've said it before, and I'll say it again, Zimmerman's an idiot. But, it's not against the law to be a moron. It's not against the law to be an idiot. It is against the law to physically assault somebody. And if you're physically assaulting somebody and the other person has a gun, you can shoot them if you feel like your life is in danger. I do believe that's what happened here. I want to get your thoughts on this, Ron Futrell. I'll open up the phone lines at 257-5396. Again, the number to call, 702-257-5396. It would have been the 24th birthday of Trayvon Martin. It's a horrible, tragic story, but the bottom line is Zimmerman, based on the evidence, did not break the law.
I don't like the way the media covered this. I remember NBC doctoring the tapes from the 911 call to make it sound like something it wasn't. And to that, there's absolutely no excuse, but they had an agenda. NBC did at the time.
Zimmerman's not even white.
When they were coming, he's Hispanic, from what I understand. So look at the
right.
racist issues
I
on
agree.
this. But Florida has some very serious stand your ground laws. You should know that in Florida, that if you're going to do somebody has the right to. If they're coming at, well, here in Nevada is not a whole lot of difference. I have a concealed weapons permit. Okay, so I'm not carrying right now, just to let you know. I don't have one with me.
Good, thank God.
I got stopped by an officer in Beatty, and he asked me, this was just recently, I was driving back from Reno on Super Bowl Sunday. Oh, we will talk Super Bowl at some point. I hope the LA
we will.
Okay.
Next segment.
Anyway. And so the officer, this nice officer, thank you, is Pahrump Valley, Nye County police officer, stopped me there in Beatty, and I was speeding, and he said it was a Sunday morning, and I said I got to get back for the Super Bowl, want to see my Rams beat the Patriots. Anyway, and he says, "Oh yeah, something else showed up on you. Do you have a concealed weapons permit?" I said, "Yes." He says, I let it expire actually at the time, and he says, "Well, you're carrying a gun with you right now." I says, "No, I do not have one with me at the moment, but it did flash up on my screen." And he says, "Well," he said, you should probably go out." He said, "I'm going to let you go on this, but go out and renew your concealed weapons permit," which I said, "Yes, I will." So yeah, which I will obey what he said, and I will get that renewed. It's so my point to that. But you're told when you go to those classes, you're told when you're going to carry a concealed weapon. This is what I was told in the classes I've gone to. You've got to take that responsibility very seriously, and only if you feel that your life or somebody else's life is in danger, use that weapon. Don't shoot somebody if they're running out of your house with a TV set. Let that TV set go.
I agree.
Let it go. Don't do it. And that's what you're told.
But in regards to Zimmerman, what do you say?
If somebody's coming after you and you feel you are in danger, that then you have the weapon and you have the right to protect yourself, you or somebody else. You also have the right to protect somebody else if you then you have to in a split second.
Yeah.
Now you have to translate yourself into a court of law. How do I defend myself that I was in danger?
Yeah.
And in threat of my life or somebody else, that I could use that weapon. It's a serious responsibility.
I don't think any logical person would disagree with you on that. I would like to think of myself as logical, so I agree with everything you said. Let's take some phone calls on this. 257-5396, the number to call. Again, 257-5396. Let's go to Chris. Chris, thanks for calling in. How are you?
Hey, how you guys doing today?
Doing good, Chris. What's on your mind?
Hey, how do you guys feel about how the media portrays these stories in such a false manner?
I think it's pretty simple, Chris, and I think Ron touched on it. If it's black versus white, the media eats it alive. Why? Because it's a ratings getter. The Zimmerman thing did have some racial...
It's partially that. It's partially that.
Let me ask you a question, though, Chris, and let's get back to the Zimmerman thing. I do agree that with Ron that they tried to make this as a white versus black thing. However, you have to answer this question. If Trayvon Martin was white, do you think Zimmerman would have called 911?
It would have never been a story.
Right. Well, but let's forget.
Okay.
You're probably right, but let's just... I don't even think Zimmerman would have called 911, though.
You can't get in his head to know that.
I doubt that he would even notice the kid walking.
Right, exactly, Chris. So, yeah, there was some racial connotations there, but, again, to answer your question, I think it's a pretty basic answer.
Yeah, but, you're not talking, like you said, and I agree with you. We're not talking black and white. The guy's a Hispanic.
Right.
The other guy's black.
Right.
So what the hell are we talking about?
Yeah, well, I think the reason why it's an interesting story, and I hate to use the term interesting because a kid lost his life. It's horrible. I feel horrible for his family. It's tragic is the word. But, the stand your ground law is an interesting law. And, it comes down to, is your life in danger? And I'm going to take Zimmerman's side on this one based on the physical evidence. I do believe if your head is getting bashed in against a cement, if I had a gun on me, I don't care who's doing it, I would probably pull the trigger. I would be scared for my life, especially if it's someone that's overpowering me. Now, again, going back to what we said before, Zimmerman's a complete buffoon. He should have never followed this kid. He probably should have never called 911. The kid wasn't doing anything wrong. But he didn't break any laws, and I think that's what we need to remember.
Now, I got the one quick question.
Sure.
For you. It's nothing to do with the protection, blah, blah, blah. But it's regarding how the media portrays stories just to increase their ratings.
Yeah.
And regardless of the subject, politics, murder, whatever, black, white, racism.
Yeah.
Why do we always get the short side of the story? And how long has this been going on?
And when you say short side of the story, just explain that a little bit. Go into detail. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's more of a falsehood when they're trying to get ratings pumped up. And it's not the truth, the actual truth of the matter.
Well, you know what? I have a perfect example, and I know where you're going with this, Chris. Let me bring up a couple names. I think Ron will agree with me on this one. Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. Okay, when a white officer shoots an African-American, usually those are the first two people we hear from, right? What about when an African-American officer shoots a white person? And I'm not saying these officers are wrong with what they're doing. In very minimal cases, they are wrong. But why is it we never hear from Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson when an unjust happens, when an African-American murders a white person? To me, that's a big issue. That's a big problem because people like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton are race baiters. I don't like race baiters. I'm sure you don't. I'm sure Ron doesn't. That's the problem. And I think, in a sense, the media are a bunch of race baiters. And
thank you.
There's no question.
It's not just for ratings, and it is partially that. And I wouldn't disagree with you on that. In fact, we could point to a lot of examples of that. Watch Good Morning America. Just watch any day on Good Morning America and watch the way that is their template. Also, it's how they in a lot of ways in the national media, it's how they see the world. Mm-hmm. They see it that way, and a lot of it is because they are leftist politically, and they see it that way. So it is not only just a ratings. No, it is that. And I give a story
News,
of an example.
Yeah, but hold on. I'm going to.
Now we're talking cable. I'm talking about the network news. I'm talking about ABC, NBC, CBS, and not
I understand,
Fox and CNN.
But as far as the Zimmerman thing, Fox News covered it the same way CNN did. You can't disagree with that.
No, they probably did.
Yeah, they did. Chris, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we let you go?
But I understand what JD's talking about. It's almost, you're not listening to the news anymore. You're listening to an opinion.
Yeah.
And nobody cares about the opinion. Just give me what the facts are. And, it doesn't matter what you think or what I think. It's what the actual truth is.
And all I can tell you, Chris,
if we could just get back to that, everyone could be getting along a lot better.
I agree, Chris. All I can tell you to respond to that is I try to. I'm not perfect, and I'm not always right, but I try to form my opinions based on facts. At least I try to.
But a lot of people start calling each other names, especially when they feel so strongly about their own opinion. But they really got to step back and say, hey, maybe I might be wrong on this.
Yeah, you know what? I could be wrong on anything, but you know what, Chris? When I do call people names, it's when they attack me personally. That's when I go back at them.
Well, I've heard it both ways, but that's okay.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean?
I hear you, Chris.
So, hey, good call, guys, and I'll call you later.
All right, thanks, Chris. I appreciate the phone call. He's right. I call people names sometimes. When somebody calls up and they call
people?
When somebody calls up and they call me a snowflake, or they call me a name, or they call me a liar, or I got some idiot who calls up and said he called the FBI on me. When I get morons like that call in, I need to put them in their place. I don't mind people like you, Ron, who disagree with me almost all the time, but I respect your opinion and we have a good rapport, and we just disagree on a lot of political issues, and that's fine. But it doesn't have to be personal. Let me ask you a question, Ron. I've known you for years.
Yes.
Long time. Have I ever personally attacked you?
No.
Thank you.
No.
You. So I'm not looking to.
Did you go after my daughter once?
I didn't call her name. I did not call her name. No. No.
She did. You and her had a Facebook exchange one time.
We did.
I remember her. She's up in college. She's a college student. Okay.
You're like, Brian, leave her alone.
Here's my dear daughter, Chelsea. Okay. She's an educator here in town. She's going to school. Who's this guy, Brian Shapiro? She said, he was going after me on Facebook back and forth. I said, oh, Brian. I just rolled my eyes and said, ignore him. Just leave him alone.
And your daughter seems like a very smart lady. You know me. I'm extremely passionate. Doesn't mean I'm always right. I say this on the radio every week. I say, look, you're not always going to agree with me. And that's fine. I don't want you to always agree. It'd be a boring planet to be on if we all agreed with each other. You're not always going to agree with me. You're going to disagree with me on some issues. You're going to agree with me on some issues. Let's talk about it. Let's have a good, solid debate. But if you say something stupid, like, quick example before we go to break. A guy called in yesterday. He said the majority of illegals coming into this country are criminals. I'm going to call you an idiot for saying something like that, okay? But we're going to take a break, Ronnie, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the State of the Union address. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to have a very, very intelligent and bright young attorney come in. Her name is Sandy Van from the Van Law Firm. That'll be at the bottom of the hour. So stay tuned for that. We got Ron Futrell, not JD.
Crossing the border is a crime, by the way.
Yes, it is. You are right about that.
Crossing the border is a crime.
That is true.
But we cannot.
But that's not what he meant. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to The Vegas Take.